All right, if we haven't met yet, and hopefully that is just a yet, my name is Jordan Diamond, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Environmental Law Institute. And it is on behalf of ELI, thank you. It is on behalf of ELI that I'm very, very happy, very grateful to welcome you tonight. I hope many of you were able to attend the inaugural Firestone Policy Forum this afternoon, an annual policy dialogue named in honor of an iconic figure in our field of environmental law and policy, who many of you knew and learned from, and whom we lost too soon, Judge Nancy Firestone of the Court of Federal Claims. Please see your program for more information about the Firestone Policy Forum, about Nancy's legacy, and we hope to see you at that Policy Forum again next year. I also hope many of you were able to enjoy this gorgeous evening. Melody, look, the weather held. You can stop living on the weather app. Right? And I hope you were able to enjoy the gorgeous evening and catch up with friends and maybe some frenemies at the outdoor reception. And when you came in just a few minutes ago, as you were settling into your seats, I hope you heard the music and saw the video playing. That was a performance provided by the Climate Music Project, which is an outstanding collaboration of renowned climate scientists and musicians that turn climate data into music. That breaks my brain. I am thrilled that there are brilliant people who can do that. There's more information about the Climate Music Project, again, in your program. And I also want to thank Lori Goldman, who serves on their board, for being with us tonight. So thank you, Lori. And now I hope you are comfortably settled into your seats at a table of people you're excited to spend the evening with a nice glass of wine or another beverage in your hand. For this is truly meant to be an evening for you to enjoy, for you to catch up with old friends, meet some new ones, and reflect, honor, and celebrate the work of the environmental law and policy community. Before I go any further, I do have some thanks I would like to express. First, to the incredible staff who make tonight happen. First and foremost, Vice President Melody DeMolling. She is the woman we would not be here without. We would not have been here for the past decade without her. So Melody, you are a wonder, and thank you for all you do. Set close behind, Megan Dix. Thank you so much for your tireless work. Kathy Way, Laura Goldman, Renee West, Jen Norman, Madison Calhoun, Sarah Viken, Colin Gibson-Tansel, Nick Collins, and everyone who volunteered today, yesterday, last week, and beyond. Thank you all so much for your continuing work. Okay. Second, our board of directors. Could all of our board members please stand up? Over the past 18 months, I have gotten to know each of you individually and collectively and have been blown away by who you are, by your work, and by your commitment to making ELI the most impactful organization we can be. I cannot properly express my gratitude for all you give and all you do. And next, our Leadership Council. Will you please rise? Okay. These are ELI's most generous individual supporters, lending their time, their expertise, and their financial support to further ELI's mission. Thank you so very much for your creativity, your loyalty, and everything that you give. It isn't the slightest exaggeration to say that we would not be here without you. And then thank you to all of you in this room tonight for powering down your laptops for a night, maybe not your phones, but your laptops, for many of you getting on an airplane to be here with us, and for pausing in the hectic pace that this profession entails to take stock of the moment, of each other, of our community. It means so much to have you here. And if I may, I'd like to add a personal note of gratitude, not as the president of ELI, but as a 42-year-old mother of 2 little ones who experienced some pretty significant health challenges this year. The level of support that I received from this community was absolutely staggering. From those that I talk to on a daily basis to those I see occasionally, People came from every direction to lend a hand, voice support, or send a treat to bring a smile. I have long said that I do this work because I still, just like I said when I was a little kid, want to save the world, and that the most important thing to me along the way is who I'm working alongside. The last 6 months have been the most affirming example of why I'm so grateful to walk amongst and alongside this particular community. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I am so excited to be with all of you tonight, not only to celebrate broadly, but also to recognize the remarkable accomplishments and contributions of Dr. Marshall Shepard. He is a renowned climate scientist, an award-winning educator, and a trusted public speaker who believes deeply in end-to-end science education that communicates his work and its significance to the public and to policymakers. He has played a top advisory role to national science and policy organizations, from the national academies to government agencies in the White House. And arguably just as important as advising presidents, Dr. Shepard has also advised ELI, such as with our Climate Judiciary Project, which collaborates with national scientific and legal institutions, including the National Judicial College and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, to educate judges on basic climate science and impacts. Without getting ahead of the program and the presentation of his award later, I will simply note that we are delighted to have the opportunity to honor him tonight. That was effective. Thank you, Scott. ELI is in the midst of a strategic planning process to craft our next 5-year plan. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about this community, about the work that ELI does to bring it together, to facilitate meaningful dialogue, to create a safe space for candid, good faith, creative, and pragmatic discussion about the challenges the world faces, about the fact that there is no single factor that creates that. It's the combination of ELI's 50-year reputation for integrity and nonpartisan initiatives. It's this community's collective desire for good and the willingness of you all to make that space. I believe those conversations are absolutely vital to our future, and I thank you all for being part of and helping create them. As one example of this type of conversation, earlier today, everyone on ELI's mailing list, and if you're not on it and want to be, please email us, received an alert about the Green Tech Conference that we're hosting on November 8th, featuring the new climate lead from the Treasury Department and an all-star lineup of speakers throughout the day from the administration, from state government, from industry, from private practice, and the nonprofit sector. It will be an in-depth conversation about implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, where it stands, how far that gets us, and what needs to happen next, both within and outside of its framework, to reach our goals of a carbon-neutral economy by mid-century. We are co-hosting the conference with Georgetown Law, and we would love to have all of you join the conversation. You can learn more at greentechconference.com. And as another reminder, ELI's acclaimed Eastern Boot Camp is coming up next month. If you have any colleagues who would benefit from an introduction to or a refresher on our core environmental laws and policies, space is running out, so please sign them up soon. As I've been doing my deep thinking, ELI is also renowned for our nonpartisan, in-depth, and trustworthy research supporting long-term solutions. For example, for decades, ELI has worked on preserving wetlands, a vital natural resource not just for their beauty and the wonder that they provide, but for their water quality benefits, the buffer they provide in the face of increasingly frequent and severe storms, their habitat and nursery functions, and the list goes on. Our work at ELI has ranged from looking at what effective mitigation looks like, to assisting with the development of restoration priorities, from tabulating the status of state programs, to analyzing the interplay between federal and state jurisdiction. So earlier this year, when a Supreme Court decision altered the Clean Water Act jurisdiction, ELI stepped up to make information available based on our years of expertise. We drafted reports and blogs viewed by thousands. We disseminated empirical research on the status of state programs. We organized and spoke on myriad panels, prepared testimony for Congress, and so on. As we have for so long, at a time of pivotal change, ELI made trustworthy information available when people needed it. We've also been working on energy from offshore wind in the Gulf of Mexico to identifying environmental justice implications in the development of renewable energy and battery storage facilities. We've been working on public health, such as state policies regarding ventilation in schools, addressing the critical gap that millions of children attend schools with inadequate indoor air quality. We've been supporting strong environmental governance in Latin America, as we've been facilitating a transparent and participatory process related to healthy reefs and small-scale fisheries in Belize, and developing educational materials around deforestation for judges in Colombia. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And if you want to learn more, there's much more information available on our website or by talking to any of us. So I mention all of this not because anyone asked me to make my introductory comments longer. That has never been a request we have received. But because tonight is a night about our community, but it is also a night for us at ELI to have a chance to show you a bit about who we are. I remember when John Cruden led this organization, he used to say that ELI punched above its weight. And Scott Fulton has often called us small but mighty. However you frame it, we are a 60-person organization that for over half a century has been a go-to, nonpartisan, and trustworthy resource dedicated to moving environmental governance forward. And how do we do that? How have we grown that hard-earned trust? We have a brilliant staff, we have a lot of passion, and we have all of you. We have a community of experts, partners, collaborators, and supporters around the country and around the world. So while our roster might be small, that does not capture the whole picture of who we are. And this is why I hope you're excited about what you hear. I hope you're proud of it, because you're all part of it. Those of us in the room tonight do not agree on every issue. And that's not only okay, that's the entire point. That's the whole point of this space that we create together. It's this energy, this collaboration, and this worldwide network of experts that make our work possible. So I hope you are as happy about what we're accomplishing as I am. Also, if this inspires you to write a donation check, I won't be sad. We accept all kinds. You can write an IOU on the back of a napkin. It all works. I would also like to take a moment to talk about someone in particular. If you know ELI, you know this person. For over 35 years, John, or Jay, Pendergrass, helped build ELI into the institution it is today. He held countless positions, including senior vice president, and both led and founded programs, including serving as the first and 20-plus year director of judicial education. He contributed to dozens upon dozens of research reports, articles, books, and more. He has been a columnist of the Environmental Forum. He has spoken, presented, and taught on a wide range of topics, from surface mining reclamation to the conceptual aspects of international law. And anyone who has ever worked with Jay, even for a day, knows that he was unfailingly, unflinchingly, the most caring and supportive of colleagues, both the staunchest of defenders and the first to respond when you needed help. This past July, Jay retired. And he and his incredible wife, Carol, are getting to spend more time traveling the world that he has worked for decades to protect. So congratulations, Jay, but we miss you fiercely already. And finally, it is with deep and heartfelt sadness that I share the news of the passing of one of ELI's greatest supporters and a true environmental champion, Ridgway Hall, just a few days ago. Thank you. You may have known Ridge through his work as a board member of the Chesapeake Bay Alliance, as a founding partner of Crowell & Mooring, as a member of ACOEL, as a former board member of ELI, or in any of the myriad spaces that he served in order to advance environmental law and policy, a field in which his impact has been profound. But no matter how you came to know him, everyone who knew Ridge knew the warmth and light that he shone on everyone around him. How he had something to share about what he was doing that he was so excited about, with a warm smile, and it just would light up the room. His is a tremendous and sudden loss to this community, and I ask us to take a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. So I am so grateful for this night each year, and not just because my high school didn't have a prom, and so I get to relive it through the environmental prom. I am so grateful for this night to connect across our profession in a spirit of nonpartisanship when everything feels more partisan, in a spirit of connection when things feel tumultuous, and in celebration of the idea that we simply want to safeguard the future for our kids and our grandkids. Truly, thank you for choosing to be here tonight when you had 1,000 options for where you could be. And I must also say a deeply felt thank you because this is also a major fundraiser for ELI. Going back to the small but mighty idea, we are a nonprofit organization that could not exist without the generosity of our donors. And thus I would like to close by saying an enormous thank you to our wonderful star sponsors. And to underscore that, yes, thank you. And to underscore that, here is our annual demonstration of why we live in DC and practice law and not Hollywood, trying to make it as actors. But please trust that this comes from the bottom of our heart with the most gratitude you can imagine. Please also note that when this video concludes, you're welcome to enjoy your dinner, enjoy the company, until we begin the award presentation. Okay? So, thank you.
Oh no! We're out of the secret serum that makes ELI special. What will we do? We need the star sponsors that make ELI special.
Bracewell LLP. Hess Corporation.
Keller and Heckman LLP. Environmental Defense Fund.
BNSF Railway Corporation and Jenner and Block.
Aiken Gump Strauss, Hauer and Feld, and General Electric.
Center for Climate and Energy Solutions. IBM.
Alston and Bird. And Constellation Energy.
Boeing. And Perkins Coie. Van Ness Feldman. L. Gates.
David Van Hoogstraten and Paul Hanley. First Environment.
Kirkwood and Ellis. Skadden, Arp, Slate, Meager, and Flom.
Baker Hofstadler. Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Ferguson and Campbell. Vincent and Elkins.
Greenberg Traurig. And Venable.
Farella, Braun, and Martell. Hogan Levels.
Lori Burt. And Shook, Hardy, and Bacon.
Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. And Pfizer. Martin Law. Geosyntech Consultants.
Wiley Rhine. Climate Leadership Council.
But we're still missing something, like the superstar sponsors. Beverage and Diamond, Crowell and Mooring, King and Spalding, and Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr.
Latham and Watkins, Sidley Austin, Hutton, Andrews, Kurth, Baker Butts,
Arnold and Porter K. Scholler,
DLA Piper.
McGuire Woods.
We're thrilled that so many of you could make time to do that, to spend time with each other, to share conversation and the very, very positive energy that's present in this room tonight. ELI provides a welcoming and a neutral setting that allows us to foster the development of effective law and policy solutions. We're doing this in an increasingly complex environment and at a time of uniquely challenging threats. We are, I think as Jordan said, a small but powerful think and do tank. And we could not do any of that thinking, and we certainly couldn't do any of the doing without all of you who are here tonight and who cooperate and support ELI, who are active on our committees, who are active on our leadership council, who join us in programs, and who spread the word about the things that ELI can do. Now, before we honor Dr. Shepard tonight, it's my privilege to introduce Rick Spinrad. And I have to say, some of you will already know this, but tonight is really a pleasure for me because I am a weather geek, and these guys are both really good weather geeks. We can thank Rick for the wonderful weather that we had tonight, right? He's in charge of the weather in the country, and that's why we had that wonderful reception outside tonight. Rick Spinrad has been the Undersecretary of Commerce and Oceans since June of 2021. He is the 11th administrator of NOAA. He oversees 12,000 employees who are collectively trying to address the climate crisis. I'm sure he could use 12,000 more, but that's what he's got right now. They are working to enhance environmental sustainability and foster economic development, a unique set of challenges. Rick has previously worked through the Oregon State University at NOAA. He was the chief scientist and led oceanic and atmospheric research programs. He's had numerous academic appointments through the years, some of which were at OSU, at the U.S. Naval Academy, and at the George Mason University. He was also the U.S.'s permanent representative to the United Nations Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. He is one of our top scientists. He is someone who is doing groundbreaking work and overseeing research to really bring the climate crisis to the public's attention and to protect the country as best he can. Rick, if you would come up and introduce our speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate that. It is truly an honor to be here on this gorgeous night. And yes, Rob, you're absolutely right. Speaking of the weather, on behalf of NOAA's National Weather Service, I'll just simply say you're welcome. We're really happy and proud on a night like this to point out that we are in charge of at least forecasting the weather. When it doesn't turn out well, we just clarify that we're actually only in charge of marketing, not production. You have to go to a higher authority for that. Distinguished guests, colleagues, it is truly an honor to be here tonight, to be able to introduce a colleague, a friend, somebody I have known for quite some time and respected for an even longer amount of time. I've known Dr. Marshall Shepard for enough time to have seen him work in a variety of capacities, including closely when he served as a member of our NOAA Science Advisory Board. Now, I'm not a lawyer or an atmospheric scientist, I'm an ocean scientist, but I do know something about the value of marrying science and policy, especially when we're talking about Earth systems. Quite honestly, I don't know how you can do the kind of work that we do in the environment without having a good understanding of the relationship between science and policy. I'd even go so far as to paraphrase the words of Lewis Mumford, who wrote that the humanities and science are not in inherent conflict, but have become separated in the 20th century. Now their essential unity must be re-emphasized so that the 20th century multiplicity may become 21st century unity. And you'll soon learn that our honoree tonight personifies that very vision. I'm also honored as a card-carrying marine scientist and the head of NOAA to help recognize a preeminent atmospheric scientist in a room full of legal experts, thus epitomizing the spirit of what we call One NOAA. And our mission is to emphasize the concept of a climate-ready nation. Now think about that. A climate-ready nation, and this is where things start getting exciting, because you'll hear a lot, especially in the next few weeks as we have major events such as the COP28 in Dubai. You're going to hear a lot about the threats, the challenges, everything from sea level rise to acidification to temperature increases in the atmosphere and the oceans. We would argue at NOAA that, in fact, we can be climate ready, and if we are climate ready, we can actually benefit and prosper. Not words that you typically hear in discussions about climate, but if we have the understanding of climate and understand what's going to happen in the future and understand how that intersects with statutory, regulatory, legal issues, we can actually benefit and prosper. A concept that I know is deeply felt by Dr. Shepard, someone who very early in his career, oh, by the way, was actually a meteorological technician at our National Weather Service office in Tallahassee. Thank you for that, Marshall. Appreciate your service to the community. Let me say a few words about Marshall specifically. And I'll start by saying that answering tough scientific problems requires incredible capabilities and the ability to communicate their value in the solution. And Marshall excels at that. His brilliant career as a scientist, and I will simply point out that ELI had to decrease the font to the lowest tolerable level in order to print his bio on one page in the program. I'm not going to go through page by or word by word. Please take a close look at all of his accomplishments. His accomplishments are manifold. His awards are both well-deserved and astounding. I would also argue, knowing Marshall and his career trajectory, that his intelligence is also on display by his extraordinary decisions to avoid the pull of Washington, D.C. Something I think I could learn very well from you, Marshall. Thank you for that. And many of us, oh, by the way, have tried to pull him back here, I would add. He had over a decade of research experience at NASA Goddard, just down the road here. He's been doing extraordinary research and teaching at the University of Georgia. Something I haven't figured out is he actually went to an ACC school for all of his degrees, but he teaches in the SEC. Or, by the way, he was recently recognized as the SEC Professor of the Year, but undoubtedly he has some internal demons to deal with, I'm sure. Those of us who've known Marshall also know that he is a committed family man and leader. In fact, tonight, when we met up, one of the first things Marshall shared with me was his points of pride about his wife, son, and daughter. Congratulations on all of their successes, Marshall, too. And he not just only walks the climate talk, he drives it. He's a proud owner of an electric vehicle, like some of us, and uses that, in fact, I've seen as a demonstration of the kinds of change we all can make in our daily lives. He captivates people's interests, whether through the Weather Geeks program, which I have been honored to participate on multiple occasions, or through talks that he's designed to draw people into climate change. Who could skip a seminar titled, you ready for this, Zombies, Cola, and Sports, Implications for Communicating Weather and Climate, or Cloudy with a Chance of Science? I love that one too. He also obviously has shared his experience. Many of you here at ELI know that he has worked on the Climate Judiciary Project. I've learned about his personal engagement in trying to make sure that judges around the country are actually well informed on issues associated with climate. And as so many of us at NOAA are aware now, we need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to talk with communities that have influence on society and give them the experience and the knowledge on climate issues that we as scientists are developing. Marshall has served on numerous federal advisory boards under multiple administrations, and that should tell you something too. In an era when unfortunately science is equated with political alignment, Marshall has threaded that needle beautifully to understand that science is inherently apolitical and has a role to play in advising all ideologies and all parties. Marshall understands the complex dynamic between science, community, and culture, including religion. And I want to share with you something that I read that Marshall wrote just recently. He wrote, "Black churches on the corner or in our communities must engage on climate change rather than turn a blind eye. The scripture calls for good stewardship of the planet, right? Find a way, start conversations, compost food from church gatherings, recycle, offer expert lectures, be a weather shelter, host a seminar on EVs and energy efficiency in homes, review diets and become climate voting literate. I still reflect, this is Marshall speaking, I still reflect on the time telling a woman to have a plan B for an outdoor activity, and she said, 'We will pray about it.' It rained." And here's the best part of the quote. Dr. Shepard wrote, "Remember, God gave us weather models, knowledge, and radar too." I love that. The Environmental Law Institute Environmental Achievement Award is honoring an extraordinary scientist, philosopher, thought leader, global community champion, and nice guy in recognizing Dr. Marshall Shepard. In 2004, the president selected Dr. Shepard for the prestigious Presidential Early Career Award. Dr. Shepard appeared on Face the Nation, Larry King Live, and the Today Show. In 2021, just 2 years ago, Marshall achieved the science world's equivalent of baseball's Triple Crown when he was selected a member of the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Sciences, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Please give him a special round of applause for that extraordinary accomplishment. I would add that with tonight's honor from the Institute, he completes an enviable and much-deserved environmental EGOT for awards. I'll close with another wonderful quote from Marshall. He said, "Think about how you perceive science and how you can evolve in terms of how you perceive science. Essentially, every aspect of our daily lives is touched by it." I know I now speak for so many of my colleagues in government, academia, industry, the nonprofit sector in saying, congratulations, Dr. Shepard. Can't wait to see where you go next. Congratulations, Marshall.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Administrator Spinrad, for that introduction. Hey, before we turn to Dr. Shepard, I just want to read to you all the inscription of the award he's receiving tonight. This award honors J. Marshall Shepard, a leading climate scientist, an award-winning teacher, and a trusted public speaker who believes deeply in the importance of communicating his work and his significance to the public and to policymakers. As just mentioned, in 2021, he was elected to the National Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Engineering, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, three of the highest academic honors in the nation. His research has cast new light on climate justice issues by describing the effects of urban heat islands and climate change on increased flooding in disadvantaged communities. The impact of Dr. Shepard's work extends far beyond his research. He advises presidents, government agencies, and national scientific institutions, frequently consulting with key leaders at the White House, Congress, NASA, the Department of Defense, and officials from foreign countries. He makes appearance after appearance in K-12 classrooms, at science fairs, and at Rotary clubs. He appears on TV and produces numerous publications, a podcast, and insightful and approachable TED Talks. Through all of this, he has indelibly marked public understanding and the policy of science. ELI has been honored to work with Dr. Shepard, and for all of this and more, Dr. Shepard, we are delighted to present you with the 2023 Environmental Achievement Award.
Wow, thank you. You know, after I get my remarks done, I'm going to ask Rick for his PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. I have to bribe him for those kind words. No, thank you so much, Rick. Thank you for this great honor. It is a privilege to stand before you to receive this prestigious award. Before I reflect on this honor, I would like to take a few moments to deliver appropriate thank yous. First, I would like to thank the Environmental Law Institute. Specifically, thank you to President Jordan Diamond and Board Chair Rob Kirsch. Additionally, and I mean this wholeheartedly, and everything that I say I mean wholeheartedly, it is a pleasure to work with the outstanding and professional staff at the Environmental Law Institute. Let's give them a round of applause. I was president of the American Meteorological Society, the AMS, and I know how valuable, amazing staff can be. And over the last few weeks and months working with the ELI staff, I see why this organization punches above its weight. When I look at the list of previous recipients, I'm almost tempted to say, are y'all sure y'all want to give this to me? I want to also thank my colleague Paul Hanley for his initial engagement on this honor as well. Thank you, Paul. Next, I would like to thank my friend and colleague, Dr. Rick Spinrad, for those kind remarks. Throughout my career, there are colleagues that are beacons for how science, integrity, and leadership look. Rick is one of those colleagues, and his stewardship at NOAA is what the nation and the world needs right now. So thank you, Rick. NOAA is a critical broker in the U.S. stewardship of environmental, climate, weather, water, and societal challenges, and Rick is definitely the right person to lead us in that regard. While they could not be here tonight, my family is everything to me. My wife, Ayanna Shepard, is the rock of our home and shares equally and unequivocally in every single honor that I receive. Yeah. I also credit her for being my litmus test. She is very intelligent and no nonsense. When I'm talking about weather, climate topics, she is always my keep it real filter. She's the one that will say, will that be received? Is that science gibberish? Or will it be effective to communicate? I also want to acknowledge my two kids, Anderson and Arissa. They're foundational to my activities and my life. As we speak, Anderson is probably just walking off a basketball court, finishing his second day of varsity basketball tryouts. He made the team. And Arissa is probably at some meeting studying or playing volleyball at the University of Georgia. She is a second-year sociology and pre-law major with a desire to enter into the environmental justice arena. As I speak to you tonight, I can't help but say, there are lots of potential law school reference letter writers in this room. I'm serious, by the way. At the end of the day, they motivate me because it is our kids that will bear the brunt of much of the environmental crisis and climate change happening today. I would also like to thank my mother, Frankie Shepard, and mother-in-law, Dorothy Perez, both of whom have been providers, counselors, and inspirations for our entire family during my time at Florida State University, NASA, and the University of Georgia. I also want to take the time to acknowledge my guests tonight. They represent people from all walks of my life, and they are like family to me as well. I want to thank Dave and Tasha Raphael, and Dan and Lisa Krieger, who are close friends and colleagues from my NASA days. Gerald and Marlo Ford, friends with direct connections to my family that I just talked about. I've known Gerald and Marlo for some time, and Marlo is directly responsible in some ways for my wife. She was the one that helped us come together in some ways. I want to thank Gene Asias, and I think I may have butchered his name there, and we were just talking about it earlier. I've known Gene for a long time, but I always just know him as number 4, Iota Delta chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha. Like Dave Raphael, he's one of my fraternity brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. He is also president and CEO of CHC, Creating Healthier Communities, an organization seeking to eradicate barriers to health. I also want to acknowledge my colleague, Luann Bennett, who's here. I served on the board of the Institute for Sustainable Communities, ISC. Luann chairs the board, and it has been a joy to work with her and ISC. ISC is engaged in standing up scalable climate change solutions around the planet. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Finally, I would like to thank all of my students, colleagues, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, my extended family, and every single one of you that extended a congratulations to me as I read through the awards book and presentation tonight. So thank you. I subscribe to a concept that it takes a village, and I'm definitely a product of that. Now, all right, that's the formal thank yous. With that, let's talk about the environment. I spent 12 years of my career as an earth scientist at NASA. It is at that time that I began to truly understand the connected earth as a system and how it affects the bottom line, us. In thinking about my remarks tonight, I couldn't help but note the synergies associated with the year 1969. To paraphrase the Environmental Law Institute's 1969 Articles of Incorporation, from the start, ELI's founders understood that any legal and policy responses to environmental challenges must be grounded and founded in science. Something else happened in 1969. I was born. In 1969, the US landed humans on the moon. I can only imagine the perspective that our astronauts had as they looked back at that blue marble we call home. That same year, Hurricane Camille ravaged the Gulf Coast, killing hundreds of people. Now, the juxtaposition of the founding of ELI, planet Earth vantage point from the moon, and an extreme weather climate event like Hurricane Camille is ironic context for this moment in time tonight. By the way, Sesame Street also debuted in 1969. Shout out to Sesame Street and Bert and Ernie. As a curious child, I watched my share of Sesame Street. I have devoted a large percentage of my career to thinking about the environment with a capital E. However, some discussion about my environment with a small e is necessary here. I already told you about my time watching Sesame Street, but here's some other things to note. I grew up in a small, somewhat rural community just north of Atlanta, Georgia, called Canton, Georgia. At the time, a very small town, but now just a part of the Atlanta suburban sprawl. I grew up with a single mother who was a teacher. In fact, my fourth grade teacher. And for any of you that have had a mother or father that was a teacher, you do not want to be in their classroom. I'm sorry, I just don't want them to think I'm giving you special treatment. As a young elementary school student, I was always curious about the environment. I was that kid out in the yard catching bees and watching ants and going down to local streams and creeks digging for crawfish. In fact, in 5th grade, I was slated and wanted to be an entomologist. I wanted to study insects. But I got stung by a honeybee and almost died. I found out I was highly allergic to bee stings. This was the time when we didn't carry EpiPens around. And so the 6th grade science fair was coming around, and I said, I need a plan B, and pun intended. So I decided to make weather instruments from things we had around the house and develop a little weather model for my community. And my science project was, can a 6th grader predict the weather? It won the science fair at my school and went on to be a local winner as well at the district. And from that point on, I was bitten by the weather bug. But I did not, somebody got that. I did not want to forecast the weather. I did not want to stand in front of a board pointing at the weather. I was more curious about the hows and why of the weather. But even at that time, I didn't know or see a lot of African-American scientists or professionals in my little community. So I went to the library and read all that I could about Dr. George Washington Carver, a scientist at Tuskegee Institute at the time who did tremendous things with the peanut and lacked resources. That was my mentor from afar through books. And look what that bee led to. And I would have people as a 6th grader and a 7th grader, you're not going to be a meteorologist. You're not going to work for NASA one day. I did both. Thank you. Even today, I host a TV show and podcast for the Weather Channel called Weather Geeks. And though the title of the show is Weather Geeks, it honestly describes me, and I can hear Dave Raphael now laughing. I embrace being a weather geek. In my career, I have served as president of the American Meteorological Society. I've testified before Congress. I've advised White House officials and appeared on virtually every major television or media outlet. However, at my core, I am happy working with my students and researchers on compelling problems at the University of Georgia and beyond. However, circumstances warrant change. Environmental challenges will not be solved by scientists alone. The coronavirus pandemic showed us in vivid color that all hands on deck are required to face the grand and wicked challenges of today. Scientists, economists, policymakers, legal scholars, educators, and more will need to be at the table. Like the pandemic, climate change is the environmental crisis of this generation and generations to come. The data is clear. Climate is changing. The DNA of climate change is in today's weather events, sea level rise, disruption of agricultural productivity, threats to our infrastructure, national security considerations, economic losses, public health, and more. At the intersection of these challenges are opportunities for the government, private sector, scholarly institutions, NGOs, and the legal community to converge. But like the original ELI charter, science will need to be at the core of everything. Not opinion, not innuendo, blogs, opinion editorials, that uncle at the Thanksgiving table with the latest YouTube conspiracy theory, or tweets. It'll need to be science. As I reflect on ELI, it is clear to me that over the span of its existence and my lifetime, it has excelled at bringing together diverse stakeholders to identify solutions to pressing environmental challenges. Whether addressing food waste, cooking pollutants, energy, water, health, or decarbonization, ELI is at the forefront of, in its own words on its website, making law work for people, places, and the planet. Earlier this year, I used my Forbes outlet to write about the Supreme Court ruling in Sackett versus EPA, which sharply limited the scope of Federal Clean Water Act's protections for nations' waters. Now, as a weather climate scientist, I wasn't really focused on the legal implications and things related to wetlands. I was thinking more about the role wetlands play as a natural engineering solution for hurricanes. Rick's agency, NOAA, and the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center are the best in the business, hands down. They provide us with critical observations and forecasts of hurricanes. However, natural infrastructure like wetlands play roles too in mitigation of damage associated with hurricanes. I'm grateful that ELI sits at the intersection of these important rulings, the science and the legal implications. Now, we will all be equally exposed to a current and new generation of heat waves, floods, drought, hurricanes, and more. However, communities of color, people living in poverty, and certain age demographics will be particularly vulnerable. Communities like the one I grew up in Canton, Georgia, or the communities like my wife grew up in Southwest Atlanta. At the same time, such communities are relatively small contributors to the overall carbon emissions. Now, it's a fact. I'm a climate scientist and a meteorologist. So when I walk into a Subway to order my Italian BMT sandwich, and I tell people what I do, I'm often confronted with thoughts and visions and perspectives on the weather and climate. I have friends that are nuclear engineers, and I don't think they ever get conversations in the Subway about fuel rods. But in fact, I engage on climate and environmental discussions from the White House to the Waffle House. And I often share that with the exception of a few loud but minority voices, we have turned the corner on the climate contrarianism. But we are now stuck in what I call climate delayism. Just last year, I participated in a White House discussion on how to move beyond climate delayism and discuss costs, equity considerations, socioeconomic scenarios, policy, and law. My community will not be able to address those types of challenges exclusively. Yours will, and it is my hope that we will do it in partnership. So as I close, I reflect on my small town upbringing in Canton, Georgia. I think about the Southwest Atlanta community that my wife grew up in. People there are hardworking, they love their families, and they think about issues they perceive to be critical to them at the moment. The light bill, health care, clean air and water, safe roads, and how much the grocery bill will be this week. Ironically, each of those things is connected to the very environmental and climate issues that most of us here are concerned about. I speak often about the concept of end-to-end science, science that is engaged to affect change, policy, and improve lives. I do it, ELI does it, let's all do it. Now remember, I had a plan B with my 6th grade science project. We don't have a plan B planet. Thank you very much.
Okay. It's the witching hour, everyone. The hotel bar is but minutes away. But before we disperse, I want to thank the ELI staff one more time again for tonight's event. Melody's pretending like she doesn't hear us. Truly, thank you all so very, very much for the heart and soul that you put into planning tonight. Thank you to Dr. Shepard. Thank you for being the inspiration tonight, for the work that you do, and for letting us showcase your contributions. And thanks to all of you for being present tonight, not just here, but present, for partnering with us, for inspiring us, and for supporting the future that we all believe is possible. And with that, I am told to tell you to please take a floral centerpiece. They're long-lasting. Please take them home with you. And with that, I will be at the bar. I hope many of you will be too. All right. Thank you all.